Welcome back to Cruder.com. In this next video we're going to be talking about information formulas and specifically the cell formula. Let's get started. Now when you think about the cell formula, you got to remember that it's an information formula. So it's going to be telling us information about something, and it even says here it returns information about formatting, location, or contents of the first cell according to the sheet's reading order in a reference. Now the arguments that it's asking for are the info type and then the reference cell that we're pointing it to. If you don't have this here, it's just the default cell you're in. Now the types of information that you can pull back or that Excel can give you are listed here. And I'm going to go into depth on two of these, the address and then the file name. So let's first start off with the file name and just see what pulls back. So this is actually a really nice piece of information to have, and I usually stick it at the top of my page so that way when I print it, this is the first thing people see and they can easily find my file path or where I've saved my file at. It also helps me if I'm working on something on a monthly or quarterly or even yearly basis. It's easy to go back and review where I've saved this so that I can pull it back up again. I don't have to recreate the entire spreadsheet. Now, sometimes it's not always necessary to have the full file path, and sometimes you just want to have the name of the file or the name of the tab. We can pinpoint this by finding these brackets and using our text formulas that we've learned. Now, the search formula would be an excellent formula to go ahead and use to find just the tail end of this text. So I'm going to search for this opening bracket because that's the only thing that's unique in this area. These forward slashes, there's a whole bunch of them, so that's not really unique. So I'm going to look for first that opening bracket within this text, and I'm going to close it up here because that's not needed. It was in brackets itself, and it's at the 81st character is where that opening bracket starts. Now I'm going to do the same thing for that closing bracket here. So I'm going to put the closing bracket. I'm going to search within this text, and the first place it finds it is at character 120. Now the difference between the two should be the number of characters that is written here, the entire file name. So I can now use that mid function that we've learned to return the characters in the middle of this big text string by saying, hey, within this text, I want to start at character 81. And actually I want to say 81 plus 1 because 81 starts on that bracket. I don't want the bracket. So I'm going to add 1, and then how many characters in length is going to be 39, and I'm going to subtract 1 because it will include that bracket if I don't. So if I close that up, there you can see now I have just the file path name or just the file name and nothing else. You could also go ahead and I'm going to delete this and then just search for maybe you need the tab name formulas 1. So let's find that. So that's going to be the same mid formula, and I'm going to start with this text, and the starting point will be 120. Again, I'm going to add 1 character to get past the closing bracket, and then I'm just going to put length of this entire text. That's overkill, but at least it's going to definitely capture the amount of characters that's listed after that bracket. So if I hit enter, formulas 1 appears. The next piece of information that we're going to talk about is the address piece. And so when I use Excel and then pull back the address, it's just real basic and gives us the absolute reference of whatever cell I'm in or whatever cell that I've referenced. So in this case D18, it's just the absolute reference of D18. Now it's real simple, basic, so you're probably asking why am I talking about it? I've used this in practice where I've written instructions about, for instance, like this spreadsheet right here, there's a total of $500. I want to remember what that represents. So I've written instructions saying the total in cell F14 represents, blank. And I do this because I don't want to forget in a month or a quarter or a year from now when I go back and do this again. But the thing is that there's many times where I'm having to put in more data up above that will then shift this total down to a different row. So now it's not F14, it's F15. And this formula is now not dynamic, or this instruction manual right here is not dynamic, and I need to make it dynamic. And we can easily do this with the concatenate formula. If you don't remember, the concatenate formula just joins several text strings into one text string. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to take my instructions and combine it with a dynamic cell formula so that when I insert additional rows and push this total down, the cell that's referenced here still is the correct cell. So I'm going to use concatenate to combine those two pieces of information. So concatenate tab, open up my double quotes, and I'm going to start with my first piece of text here, and I'm going to leave that space in and end the quotes. I'm going to separate it into my next piece of text, which will be the dynamic piece. This is where I'm grabbing the cell address, and in the cell address, again, I need to reference this specific total and hit F4. I need to lock it up and get an absolute reference. That way, when somebody inserts the row above here, my address that pulls back, it's still grabbing this total cell. I'm going to close up that formula and go back into the third piece of information or text, which is going into talking about this represents and the rest of the instructions. So I'm done with the concatenate formula, and here it is. The total in cell F15 represents blank. Now watch this. So if I come in the next month and I have to add in 2 more rows, pops it down, it updates this instruction formula to F17. I guarantee you're going to turn some heads with this. This is not just a simple basic formula. Not many people know how it works or how to even write it. And I'm showing you this right now because I want you to start thinking creatively. I want you to start using formulas in combination with each other, like the concatenate and the cell formula, all within one, so that you can start making spreadsheets that are truly unique.